Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Shabbat Show. It's great to be back with you again. It is so great to be able to spend Shabbats with you, really, or pre-Shabbats with you, week after week, as the weeks turn into months, that turn into seasons. This is a special weekend, especially for those that are in the United States of America. This is the beginning of summer. Even though I think it's like officially in June, for those who worked in corporate America, you know that really Memorial Day is the beginning of summer. So happy summer to everybody. And it's a special weekend. First and foremost, it's a special weekend because Memorial Day is a day that we need to take very seriously. We live, thank God, in a relatively safe country. We live, thank God, in a country where we don't feel the threat of war like other countries do. And we live in a country where people sacrifice for that. Regardless, if you live in a town where you see people that are coming in and out of the army, because the country is so large, you may not live in an environment where you see soldiers enough, but they're there and they sacrifice themselves for the country that me and you live in and enjoy the benefits from. And we're honored that they're there, and we honor them and thank them for their service. And so on behalf of all those that fell and all of those that are celebrating Memorial Day in a much more somber way, families of those that have sacrificed their lives so that we can enjoy the liberty that we do, we honor you and we respect and we thank you on Memorial Day. The show is once again being sponsored as a program of the Carl Enoch Goldman Center for Jewish Values, dedicated by Jay Goldman. We appreciate you, Jay, and thank you so much for your constant support of the show. It's also a beneficiary of dailygiving.org. I encourage everybody to go to dailygiving.org and become a daily giver by $1 a day. Just with your $1 a day, you can give up to 40 charities simultaneously. It's incredible. Go to dailygiving.org, dailygiving.org. And there's something else that's going on right now that we'd like to talk about on this show. As you know, we have, thank God, been able to have shows that were more lightheaded and shows that were more serious, and this is going to be a more serious one. So let me just tell you in advance, we're going to be showing some material that requires age appropriateness. There's some intense things coming your way this week, this show. So just keep that in mind, depending on who you're watching it with. And the show couldn't come at a better time because of what we're going through as an American Jewish community. And if you're watching this from all over the world, maybe it's going on in your countries as well. And maybe you're watching it and it's been going on in your country. But in the diaspora community at large, over the past few weeks, we have seen anti-Semitism rear its ugly head again in ways that will shock even those who are Holocaust survivors. What we have experienced just on the coasts, if you will. Last week in the West Coast in Los Angeles, people came to a Jewish restaurant and searching for Jews to beat up. Times Square, New York City, Jews sitting at restaurants getting beaten up. Chants that hide themselves under the Israel-Palestinian conflict, but we know what it is. It's anti-Semitism rearing its head. We've been here before. And the last thing we need to do is look the other way. We've been looking the other way way too long. It's uncomfortable to stare at the country that you know your whole life and realize that there are stuff that's going on under our eyes and under our nose. We don't want to look this way. We don't want to look this way. We want to laugh. We want to be entertained. We want to watch the games. We want to make money. We want to enjoy our religious freedoms. We want to focus only our attention on those people that are good. We don't want to see the ugly. And unfortunately, the ugly came to show itself to us this week. And if you've been watching what's been going on, at least in broad daylight now, it's presenting itself. And we have to understand what it is. Here's the bad news. It's been here for a long time. A lot of it has been tucked away in universities that me and you don't frequent. Maybe our kids do. Maybe our nephews and nieces do, but we don't. And on these campuses, first seen as some fanatics, but now becoming something that we can't ignore. This has been going on for a long time. Hate, anti-Semitism, under the Trojan horse of anti-Zionism. In tonight's show, we're going to be talking about it. So if it gets a little uncomfortable, that's okay. We're Jews. We're built to handle the uncomfortable. We're going to be talking about a subject that we need to watch. Tonight, when I was taping the show, it dawned on me that if there was ever a show that I had no choice but to sit through, it's this one. Tonight, we're going to be speaking to an incredible individual. His name is Raphael Shore. He's a filmmaker. He's a visionary. He's an entrepreneur. And because of the incredible importance, we have one guest. And we're going to be going through some of his films to see what's right beneath our nose, to see what's going on in the world that we don't want to see, so that we're more informed, that we're more educated, because knowledge is power. And as Jews, we never run from truth. We are the people that fight for truth. We don't run from truth, even if the truth makes us feel a little bit uncomfortable. I'm excited for tonight's show, and I hope you will be as well. There's a lot we're going to discuss. And it's one of these shows where when we're done with it, we're going to have some homework. But better we know, because when we're together, we're stronger. You take our people, you give it truth, you bind us together, and we are unstoppable once we know what we're fighting against. So stick with us. We've got an incredible show coming up for you, and we really appreciate you being here. So let's begin right away. Our next guest, our only guest, is the founder of this organization called the Clarion Project. Check out this quick highlight reel of just a little bit of what he's doing. Check this out.
The group called the Clarion Project is dedicated to exposing the dangers of extremists.
Clarion Project is meeting with lawmakers on Capitol Hill this week to explain how young people are targeted for radicalization.
Obsession.
It gives a scary look inside the extremist world.
This is something every American should know.
The movie left many of us speechless. We appreciate what you've done.
The new film, Iranian.
The Honor Diaries.
The Third Jihad. It's powerful stuff.
Covert cash, what American universities don't want you to know about their foreign funding. It is pretty amazing.
When this amount of money is coming in from a foreign government, my first question is why?
I was raising children to be assassins and killers and weapons of war.
As a neo-Nazi, who do I hate? Everyone.
The irony is neo-Nazis and Antifa share quite a bit in common.
Even white people that don't believe what we believe, I hate.
I hated anybody who didn't look like me.
I was hyper-violent when I was 16 years old.
One former skinhead trying to leave hate behind.
It was hard when black people were very kind to me when I was trying to hate them.
I'm Raheel Raza from the Clarion Project.
She is a Muslim activist. Please welcome Raheel Raza.
I'm a human rights activist and a practicing Muslim. For the past 20 years, I've dedicated my life to speaking out against the rising threat of radical Islam. I'm came here in Washington to speak about preventing violent extremism.
Clarion Project developed Preventing Violent Extremism, or PVE.
We go in and we teach communities how to spot signs of radicalization.
They are sharing their insights with Congress, the State Department, and Homeland Security.
The visit comes ahead of the release of the Clarion Project's documentary called Kids Chasing Paradise.
Because what is happening to these young children is child abuse.
Thank you for being so brave for speaking out.
Brian Morrow is a national security analyst for the Clarion Project.
What does your investigation reveal?
It's amazing. You dug it up.
The Clarion Project, who I work for, we broke this story.
This is the video that's the video you gave this to us of Islamberg.
This is in New York State.
Brian Morrow has been helping investigators in this case.
We've accumulated thousands and thousands of documents to help law enforcement with this.
The country owes the Clarion Project a real expression of thanks. We appreciate it.
It's truly an honor to have the founder of the Clarion Project on. His name is Rabbi Rafal Shor. He's a rabbi, an educator, and an award-winning film producer. The Clarion Project, of which he is the founder, produces groundbreaking documentary films, including the critically acclaimed Obsession, Radical Islam's War Against the West, which was seen by 30 million Americans and won Best Feature Film in 2005 Liberty Film Festival. CNN, the New York Times, and other leading media organizations have interviewed him extensively over his work. He also founded and is the executive chairman of Open Door Media, producing their 2009 documentary Crossing the Line, The Intifada Comes to Campus, which explores the proliferation of anti-Israel and anti-Semitic sentiments on North American college campuses. Rafal's films at both organizations drive impact to a broad audience via broadcast streaming and film festivals. It is incredible what he has been producing, what his organizations produce. It's an honor to introduce Rabbi Rafal Shor join us on the show. So Rafal, thank you so much for being here and joining us on the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Charlie. Great to see you.
It's an honor to have you on. Tell us a little bit about this Clarion Project. I see this everywhere, but you're the man behind it. So give us a little bit more about what it is.
Sure. Yeah, it's the Clarion Project. You can find out all about it on the website, clarionproject.org. But it really began around 14, 15 years ago. I'm in Jerusalem. The reality of the conflict that we have in the Middle East is very palpable, although it came a little bit closer to home for you Americans this week.
Oh, yeah.
But it's been real here for quite a long time. And I felt that, we got to deal with this. We have to, the radical Islamists who did 9/11 on America, they're the same enemy of the Jewish people. They're the same enemy, the Jewish people, Israel, and America, it's the same enemy. And this enemy is very large and very not understood, very ununderstood.
Right.
And so I felt that I had an obligation, since for some reason I had a clarity. I felt I had an obligation to try to enlighten most of the Western world, if possible, if there's any way possible, as to the nature of this threat. What is the ideology behind radicalism? How serious are they? How much of a threat are they to Americans and to Jews? And so I started it 14, 15 years ago with the idea of making films and sharing those films with Americans and with Jews to try to help educate.
So where did this come from? I mean, people have passions for a lot of things, and you end up in a bunch of different ways of helping the world, right? This is quite unique for our people. There aren't a lot of people doing this. So where does this passion come from to reveal this so that people see what's going on in radical Islam?
That's a great question. When I was 20 years old, I started to become Choser B'Tshuva. I didn't grow up religious, from Canada and typical non-religious background. And I had a twin brother who became religious at Aish Torah. and I started to explore it. Then I went back to university, and there was something about anti-Semitism that drew me, and I wanted to understand what's the nature. Why do they hate us so much? What was going on with Adolf Hitler, Yamach Shemo, and the Holocaust? What is it that's driving them? And I saw this weird mirrored reality that on some level the anti-Semites appreciated how great we are, and because they understood our greatness and they were evil, they wanted to wipe us out. And I got a tremendous clarity on that, and for some reason that drove me to understand it and then to explain it to others. That was part one. Part two was that I became a student of Rabbi Noach Weinberg Zatzal. And Rabbi Weinberg at Aish Torah, he taught us always to take responsibility for the Jewish people. And although Aish Torah was primarily a kiruv organization, and we dealt with the spiritual threat facing the Jewish people and assimilation, Jewish identity, but no less important to him was the physical survival of the Jewish people. And when Jews were under threat, it didn't matter, spiritual, physical, we had to take responsibility. That was part of the ethos of Aish Torah. And so when I saw the threat, and when I saw like the 1982 Lebanon war, and then the Intifada and the media bias against us, I felt, oh my gosh, we got to do something. And it's not someone else's responsibility, it's my responsibility. And so I felt, okay, I got to act.
It's a great concept. It's just a great lesson in life to take responsibility for things because they're the right thing to take responsibility for, right? Just for me to note this, what you didn't say was, well, my father's a filmmaker and my grandfather's a filmmaker and my great grandfather's filmmaker, and I have a degree in Middle Eastern religions, right? Which would have been a more sort of incremental approach to how I ended up here. What you said was, I don't know, I'm a regular dude, but there's a problem, so let me step up. And God's like, you're kidding me. Oh, let me give you some more information. Let me give you some more energy, which is really how the Jewish people deal with problems, right? They're never ready until they get into it. And then once they get into it, they get, I believe, and I'm sure you believe as well, divine assistance to become,
yes,
because you really, thank God, are the world's expert. I mean, I'm sure I don't know off the top of my head, but it's many millions of DVDs and downloads of each and every one of your films. Some of these stats I was looking up is unbelievable, how some of your films actually are helping law enforcement catch bad guys, which is just, that's unbelievable.
Thank God. Thank God. Our films have been seen by over 130 million people. Probably about 40 million DVDs were sold in the heyday of DVDs. And they still are being used by law enforcement and to train police and national security to educate them. And no, I thank God. I look at it like you said. I think it's a very important point that I did study film at university, so I had an inner passion for that creativity.
Right, I'm sure.
I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but it's like Bezalel, in the Mishkan. Hashem picks up Bezalel and points them out and says, "You build the Mishkan." And like what? They were trained while they were slaves in Mitzrayim to do all that handiwork. No, but if you take responsibility for someone, Hashem gives chokhmah. And thank God I have had siyata dishmaya to be able to figure out how to become a filmmaker and how to distribute, because I felt it was absolutely necessary.
Right.
And I think maybe it'd be good, I think the main thing that's driving me is that most people do not understand how serious this threat is. Again, the last few weeks, American Jews have gotten a better taste. But there's, over 1 billion Muslims. Even if a small number are radical, that's a huge number. And now with intersectionality, a lot of people are joining forces together. And so we made a film recently. It's probably good we can share the clip from that film. This is a recent one called Kids Chasing Paradise. And it shows how throughout the Muslim world, there's an indoctrination going on to hate Jews, hate Israelis, hate America, but not just hate. Like we as Jews, we're Rahmanim b'nei Rahmanim. We don't understand what it means to be ruthless and want to wipe out an enemy. We just don't get it. It's not in our genetics. But there's literally tens of millions of children being indoctrinated today into this. And we made a film about it. And, let's watch a clip.
So we're driving over to the place where the attack occurred. I haven't actually been there before. I was kind of a little freaked out by going there. But I think it's about time to.
After the attack, all I could think about was what brings two 20-year-olds to go out and do something so brutal, to shoot a retired old man in the head. What brings somebody to that horrific psychological state? And I was thinking about those questions a lot, and they were really bothering me. And then suddenly there was this reenactment video that appeared on the internet. The Hamas student union in Gaza put together a reenactment video showing the attack on my father and on the bus. They had students dressed up as passengers on the bus. They had students dressed up as the terrorists. And they carried out the attack in the way that they envisioned that it must have happened. I was shocked. Until that point, I hadn't really been familiar with the incitement that exists on social media. I hadn't followed these videos. I hadn't followed these posts. I started looking for more information about the attack on the internet. There were numerous posts glorifying the terrorists. There were videos produced supporting the attack.
في القدس الشريف خصصنا هذه الحلقة لتكون حلقة تضامنية مع الشهيد عليان، فخطط ونفذ مع صاحبه عملية الباص في القدس المحتل.
And when I saw that, I began to understand the problem, and I began looking for other types of incitement.
فلسطيني فلسطيني حمل البارود اضرب اضرب باسم الرب اضرب اضرب باسم الرب. برافو، شكرا كثير 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 لإلك.
And I just came across terrible things. What I saw is that this incitement is going on all around the world.
ونقدم الأرواح دون تواني وسنضرب الأعناق عن أجسادهم ونسومهم سوء العذاب القادم.
It's in the school system. It's in television, and it's definitely all over social media.
So I got to tell you, I'm totally, as expected, blown away by what I just saw. Here's what my brain is telling me. It's just a few people. It's not so much. It can't be. Like, there's no way. How do you process this?
Yeah, it is probably what you're touching upon is without a doubt the greatest challenge that we have as filmmakers covering this topic, cognitive dissonance, because people just can't believe it. They just can't believe it. And this is the core problem of Westerners, of Americans,
right,
to think that everyone's like them in the world. And sadly, it is so much not like that. If it were, we would be living in a wonderful world, but it's not like that. And as much as we paint it, we pull back, we show this material, but we deliberately pull back and make it not as bad as it really is, because we know people can't handle it.
Wait, it's worse.
It's worse. Yes, it's worse. It's worse. It's worse. It gets
that was the cleared for studio audience. That was the PG version of it. Are you kidding me?
I'm telling you, it's worse. And they're getting it. They're getting it from the time this kind of radicalization and incitement is happening from the time they are young children. They're getting it from the streets, the posters that they watch. They're getting it from their politicians. They're getting it from their teachers. They're getting it from the media. It's in a complete and full indoctrination. And you've got a choice for the Palestinians between the PA, Palestinian Authority, which Holocaust denial and anti-Semitism is rife, versus Hamas. So you've got PA is the mild version. So we're showing you the PG PA version, let's say. But it's and it makes it a great challenge as filmmakers because people have a really hard time believing, but this is the reality. And then when you get a conflict like we just saw, like what is it that drives people to shoot missiles at civilians and then have hundreds of thousands of people cheering and getting on the streets and the reason the elections were called off in Israel in the last few weeks, which was one of the causes or excuses for the latest conflict, was because Hamas was going to be elected. Hamas, whose platform is genocide, to wipe out Jewish people in Israel, to murder every one of us, they're going to get elected democratically. And so they canceled the elections because the PA didn't want to lose to Hamas, and nobody else wants Hamas to win either. But that shows you what's going on. When you have a generation of indoctrination, then they all elect genocidal organizations. So that's the proof that it's as bad as I'm showing you here.
Wow. You know what's amazing here, and I'd love to see the next film that you have for us. It's what's so fascinating is how many kids on liberal college campuses who are fighting for people's rights and are standing up in solidarity with Hamas. I don't know if they would necessarily be excited about seeing some of these things. It's just an amazing thing that, and I'm sure you have had plenty of feedback, I hope, from kids that are like sort of not knowing what to do and sort of joining a rally because someone told them that, like, Israel is out there killing babies and they have no idea what's really going on in the Middle East.
Yeah, it's no idea. This is the issue of what we referred to earlier as intersectionality. That in the last few years, there's been a intersectionalization, a common denominator created between all liberal causes. All oppressed peoples are the same and must join forces. The definition of an oppressed people is that they're weaker. So by definition, Israel is stronger, Palestinians are weaker. Therefore, anybody who's concerned for any good liberal cause has to fight for the Palestinians. If you're concerned about abortion or women's rights, or if you're concerned about Black rights and civil rights, then you're also fighting for the Palestinians because they're also the weaker in this model. And it's creating a horrible situation for young Jews on campus. And I do want to talk about it a little bit more to show you what's happening. And we made in fact, maybe we'll do it now. We made a film about what's going on campus. It's actually called Crossing the Line 2.
Let's watch that.
The reason it's called Crossing the Line 2 relates to our previous question, because I made Crossing the Line, the Intifada comes to campus, to show how bad anti-Israel the movement is on campus and how it's crossing the line to anti-Semitism. I made it about 10 years ago. Nobody wanted to believe it. Cognitive dissonance. 5 years later, people started to realize that we had to make another film, Crossing the Line 2. So let's share that clip with the audience.
Let's go see that. Wow. That line, I couldn't catch who that speaker was, but the line of that I've never heard ever articulated like this, that the way that you manifest anti-Semitism in this generation is towards the Jewish state. Meaning, I think most American Jews would say that anti-Semitism and anti-Israel are distinct. And although let me speak about me personally, although I personally see them as one, the people that are not outside, that are not in my world, right? The typical American will see them as two. And you'll have a lot of examples of that, right? You'll have a lot of people that will say, I love Jews. They supported my campaign. I just think Israel's an apartheid state, right? We have people, we have members of Congress that say that, right? That say, no, I love Jews, especially when they're fundraising from us, but Israel's a different story. And you'll see people nodding and going, yeah. And what I think you're getting at here, which is a very uncomfortable point, but this is an uncomfortable show, so it's okay, which is that's not really true. The
Yeah.
the modern day anti-Semitism is
Yes.
rearing its head through the state, the Jewish state.
Yes, very much so. Which is not to say that you can't be critical of Israel. Everybody can be critical. Jews are critical of Israel, even who live here, as we know. So not everybody who's critical of Israel is an anti-Semite, but very often anti-Israel is the manifestation of anti-Semitism in this generation. Anti-Semitism morphs. Every generation it morphs.
Right.
It's not cool. You can't be a Nazi in this generation. You can't be a racist. So anti-Semitism needs to take a new form. It needs to metamorphosize. And so this generation is the state of Israel. That's the easy place to do it. And the film actually defines it. The film actually sets out criteria and demonstrates it based on actually an idea that Natan Sharansky gives. And this film, by the way, anyone can watch it. It's up on YouTube. They just Google Crossing the Line on YouTube, Crossing the Line 2. It's a half-an-hour film that's available for free for people to watch. But I think that it demonstrates very strongly that fine line between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism, which was fine until a month ago. But now when you have people walking through Times Square and through kosher restaurants in Los Angeles saying, where's the Jew Zionist? Where's the Jew? Where's the Jew? And beating him up because of what's going on in Israel. Nobody can say that's not anti-Semitism.
100%.
And so the line that was a little bit blurry has become quite clear, I think, to many people.
I can tell you, I couldn't agree more. Meaning there's no reason why a person should be beaten up in a restaurant in America if it's about Israel, right? There's no, if the guy, unless the guy had a Israeli flag wrapped around them, right? It's one thing
which they didn't,
right? If you happen to be an identifiable Jew, if it was separate, it would be separate. Here's where it gets to be a little more uncomfortable. I have colleagues that are taking the stance of trying to suppress any support for the state of Israel in hopes that they are going to dodge any negativity coming their way.
In other words, these are Jewish colleagues.
Yeah, Jewish colleagues that are just saying, hey, listen, we can't talk about Israel anymore.
Lay low.
Because if I could just leave Israel off the map, then I'll be safer. Not realizing that just like I don't want to create parallels here, but I think just if we speak historically, Jews are constantly trying to figure out how to get people to hate them less, as opposed to sort of embracing the fact that they just hate you.
Yes, and I think this touches on the most core issue, actually, of what motivates me as well, because what you're seeing there with your colleague is the direct result of this anti-Semitism in the world is assimilation. And what happens is if you're a student on campus, and you're saying even colleagues in the professional world, and you're feeling this pressure, you're feeling it, even if you might not be even experiencing it, you're feeling, if I stand up for Israel, if I stand up for the Jewish people, I'm going to get a lot of flack. And today I'm going to get slaughtered on social media. That's what happened in the last few weeks. Any young Jew who stood up a little bit for Israel got slammed on social media, flipped out, freaked out, anti-Semitism, everything. The result of that is I'm going to learn my lesson. I'm stepping back.
Yeah.
And it's just a more visible manifestation of what's been going on for 20 years. Because bottom line is we are guests in America. We're guests in the exile wherever we are. And this anti-Israel feeling, this anti-Semitism has been bubbling. And if you're not comfortable as a Jew, if you're not really clear on the issues, then you get confused and it leads to assimilation.
Excellent. That's an excellent point. I want to double click on that for a second, and I want to go to the next film. That's an excellent point, which is the ability, the response, at least what I'm hearing from you, is before you think that what it means to be pro-Israel or whatever now is go on Facebook and start fighting, at least be educated. at least take
Mhm.
responsibility for yourself and your family to see these things, to deal with the discomfort of watching films, like to understand Israel better, to be educated about it, because you're going to want to just disengage completely and turn around to see like whether or not
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers signs with the Packers and go back to your life. When,
Yeah, did he? By the way, did he?
as far as I know, I don't think he did yet, though.
But I think,
which is an issue into itself.
But I think that the issue is that when there's so much negativity or anti-Semitism or anti-Israel feeling, a young Jew has to conclude one of two ways. Either they are correct, and I, as a Jew, or the Jewish state has a problem and is in the wrong, or the world and all of this negativity that's coming at me is wrong.
Yeah.
Now, it's very difficult. It's very difficult for a young Jew to conclude that United Nations and the European Union and much of the Democratic Party, especially and the progressivists and Black Lives Matter, are all wrong and have a Jewish problem.
Yep.
I know what I'm talking about. That level of clarity is very difficult.
Oh yeah.
And requires an education
That's
that
good.
results in a moral backbone.
That's good. That's right. That's
And
right.
very few
That's
young
right.
Jews are given enough information to have that moral backbone.
That's exactly
And
right.
that's a good lead into the next film clip, which is that I have another organization called Open Door Media. And we're just doing the pro-Israel stuff. I separate it. The Clarion Project does work about national security threats, radical Islam, anti-Semitism, fighting evil. But I want to inspire young Jews. And so we have an entire organization, which is actually quite large. And we're pumping out a lot of incredible educational material about Israel, about Judaism, about the Jewish people. And whether it's like a 55-part series on YouTube of 10-minute videos on the history of Israel, or a 30-part series on the history of the Jewish people, this is all available on Unpacked. It's our YouTube channel, Unpacked. But we try to find great Jewish stories. And this film clip, which we'll show you, just gives you a taste of some of our feature films that we've made. Some of them were on Netflix, in fact, and Comcast and PBS. This one is called Makonnen, the Journey of an African Jew. And there's an Ethiopian Jew who made Aliyah and served in the army, and we follow his story. And then we follow him back as he returns to Ethiopia. And it's a beautiful story, and it's inspiring. And it's the kind of stories that we need to teach our generation.
Amazing. Let's check it out.
מקונן נולד באתיופיה. אבא שלו נפטר כמה ימים לפני שהם היו צריכים לעלות, והם עולים לארץ, וזה מקום חדש, תרבות חדשה. ועכשיו אימא שלו אלמנה עם עוד 6 ילדים, והיום מקונן קצין. יאללה, קדימה, לתת אש!
זה היה חשוב לי מאוד לבוא לפה, להסתכל על המקום שנולדתי, שאף פעם לא חזרתי מאז שעליתי. פה אני מרגיש אולי קצת קרוע לב. אבא שלי נפטר פה, ויש פה אנשים שיקרים לליבי שנשארו פה. פה זה היה כל המקום שלי, כל ההיסטוריה שלי, ההתחלה שלי. יום לפני עלייה שאבא שלי נפטר, זה היה פה. המקום האמיתי שלי זה ארץ ישראל, זה העם שלי, זה המדינה שלי. בשבילה אני נלחם, בשבילה אני בצבא, ובשבילה אני אמשיך להילחם.
That's awesome. When is this film out? When does it come out? Is it available?
It's out. It's out.
Oh.
Yeah, it's out.
Great.
This one's been out for a while. This one we did hundreds of events on college campuses
Oh, is
about
that
3 years
great?
ago. We
That's
actually
great.
brought an Ethiopian hip hop band to American campuses for their first tour. Ethiopian
That's
Israeli
great. That's
band.
great. That's great.
And I have to check where it's up, but several of our films are up on iTunes and Amazon Prime.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing. What was it
yeah.
like
If you go to
filming that? What was it like filming that and seeing the story of this individual who, I mean, what an arc of story from where he came from to where he ended up. What was a moment maybe you can share with us, sort of behind the scenes that
I
you
got a good
felt
story.
along the way?
So first of all, we had made a film before. This is the poster for that film called
Sure.
Beneath the Helmet.
That I know for sure. Yeah,
From
of
high
course.
school to the home front, and we followed 5 Israelis as they went through paratrooper training in the Israeli army, and it was to
Wow.
show the human face of Israeli soldiers. Like, these kids would love to go to college and party and be irresponsible like Americans are, but instead they got to go and defend their state. What's that like? Let's get to know these people. Let's to see what their challenges are, what drives them. And you'll see that, we had the woman officer, the Ashkenaz, the Sephardi, the Swiss Ole Hadash, and then we had McConan. He ended up being one of our guys, and he had such an amazing story that we did the follow-up film with him.
Wow.
And one good story was the film team had just arrived. My wife was actually the director of this film. So the film team, and the film team had just arrived into Ethiopia. Actually, it was at Entebbe, where the famous story. They had arrived in Entebbe, and they're taking the bus from the airport. And the film team is there, and our cameraman's a big Russian Jewish guy, and he's got his tzitzis hanging out, and busload full of black Ethiopians. And one of them just says out loud for everyone, "What are those strings hanging down from your shirt?" And he started to explain, well, they're tzitzis, and this is the reason for it. And she says, "Are you Jewish?" And he says, "Yeah." He says, "You killed Jesus Christ." And then they're like, "Uh-oh."
Speaking of anti-Semitism, that's an old one.
So it ended up, it was just a curiosity. Oh, you're the people that killed Jesus Christ. But, they weren't like out to attack them. So they were able to breathe easy. But
oh my gosh,
that was
scary.
That was a moment.
That's scary. That's great though. But these are these films that, these films I'm sure touch so many lives. So many lives are moved by seeing the stories of others. Yeah. And so we are always looking to find great stories. This is another film that we made here, Sustainable Nation. This one came out recently. Get the poster here. Sustainable Nation. I see that there. Yeah. And we tell the story of these 3 Israelis who are coming up with incredible technology for saving the planet with regards to water and energy usage. Wow. And this woman, for example, Sivan, she's drilling wells throughout Africa to bring water and energy to these villages that are completely backwards and completely messed up. And it's just incredibly inspiring. So we tell that story of how Israel's kind of figured out the water and have gone from a desert to a place of somewhat abundance of water, is now sharing that technology with the world. So again, it's an amazing, inspiring stories. And that's what we're always looking for. To share the information. And that's what we do at Open Door Media. We're actually on that film Crossing the Line, by the way, just to share with your audience, we've just decided to make another upgrade, another version, Crossing the Line 3, because it's 5 years old and it's just gotten worse. And what's happening now is it actually has now bumped from the campus to all of America, as you saw in the recent conflict. So we're going to make a new film. And if any of the viewers out there are interested in supporting us and helping us do that, contact Charlie, and Charlie can forward you the information. Yeah, you go to projectinspire.com and we'll get you the information that you need, especially get you the information how to watch all these films. And we'll put them on our sites. We'll send links so that wherever you are. But let's go to give me your websites as well so they can go directly. Where websites can people visit if they're interested? Yeah, so clarionproject.org
And then on YouTube, do a search for Unpacked, the Unpacked channel. We also have opendoormedia.org. That's where all of the pro-Israel material is, and you can get a huge education and a lot of inspiration through coming to these channels.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Rabbi, thank you so much for being with us today, and all that you do. It's this incredible amount of work and effort that goes into every frame and every moment on these films, and I can only imagine the hours that no one will ever see to make it just right, so that people can be moved to seeing truth. Really, it's what you're trying to do. You're not doing this so that you can win Emmy Awards, which I hope you do win, but you're doing them because you're trying to share truth, which is really of the noblest things that you can do. So we thank you for who you are and for shining your light on this world.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be on the show, and I'm glad to be working together with you.
Thank you, Rabbi. And we thank Rabbi Rafal Shor for his really, really incredible presentation, the tour of all the different types of films that he's taking us through, and the shocking nature of it that someone needs to reveal. The question that we get a lot is, what can we do about it? We'll check out this quick video that gives us a little bit of a perspective.
Israel and the Palestinians have been back in the news cycle, and with everyone from pundits to celebrities to your cousin weighing in, it's hard to tell who to trust. And let's be honest, no one is above their own biases, including us at Unpacked. Our bias, if you want to call it that, is that Zionism is a good thing, and the Jewish people's right to self-determination ought to be a given. So first, we wanted to ask 3 questions about how to be a conscious consumer of content, and then suggest our 5 most important videos that address the very complicated history in Israel. Number 1, is it oversimplified? Boiling the conflict down to short slogans and simple cartoons is irresponsible, at best ignorant, and at worst manipulative. If a cartoon or meme piques your interest, always make sure to dig deeper and question the motives of the creator. Singing Jalebi Baby and inserting poop emojis on TikTok is for sure entertaining, but when it comes to addressing what many view as the most intractable conflict of the day, let's try to elevate the conversation. Number 2, is the source giving the perspective of multiple sides? It's easy to dehumanize the other by ignoring multiple perspectives, but that won't really solve anything. Understanding of the other is the path to peace, and as much as we want that for the Middle East, let's model it in our own discourse. Number 3, is it giving enough historical context? It's not enough to say,
I'm not going to try and recap the history here.
Too much conflict has started with setting fire to history books. In order to understand the present, we must learn about what brought us here. The story of the Jewish connection to the land matters, and of course, the history of the Palestinian connection to the land matters as well. With those in mind, here are 5 of our most important videos that go through some of the accusations against Israel and some broader historical questions to be aware of, all linked to in the description below. Number 1, does Israel practice apartheid? This is a question we've seen all over TikTok and Instagram. Number 2, is Zionism colonialism? This is another idea many people have been throwing out there. Number 3, is Israel an occupying power? Wow, the word occupation is loaded. What do people mean when they use this term? Different people seem to be using this term differently. Number 4, what is the history of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? And number 5, who is Hamas and what are they all about? If we're going to opine on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, it's important to know who the key players are. It's become more than just a little cliche to say the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is complicated, but the truth is that it is. In a world where social media makes information more accessible than ever before, let's utilize social media for good. Ensure we take the time to learn more complete stories, shun misinformation and disinformation, and as a result, this will hopefully lead to more constructive conversations.
It's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to engage in information that makes us uncomfortable. It's a hard thing to think that there are people that hate us for no reason, that don't know us, that don't really know the story. How in the world can you grapple with the fact that little kids are being taught to kill for they don't even know us? Look at those stories. It's unbelievable. Reenactments where murder and destruction is the most valued thing. For many of us, we've never even seen such things. And it's uncomfortable. And I'd rather be entertained. But this is reality, and this is real, and this is life. This is what it means to be a Jew. People hate us for no reason. And as Rafael Shor said, it doesn't mean that Israel's perfect, but there's criticism of government, and then there's destruction of Jewry, and they're very different. What do we take from a show like this? Well, what do we take from Shabbat? Shabbat is the day in which we think. But it's more than that. You see, when God shuts down the week, what he does is he enables us to breathe in and to tap in to a deeper source of our power. The whole aspect of Shabbat is to deepen ourselves, to think about our week, to think about our future, to find strength where we didn't know existed in the runnings arounds of the week. Shabbat is designed to remind ourselves that we're here for a purpose, remind ourselves that the partner in creation is God, remind ourselves that there's some big work ahead of us. And there's some big work ahead of us, no matter where you live. And we've got a lot of power. We've got a lot of strength. Whatever God puts in front of us, he gives us the ability to grapple with and to overcome. But we have to be willing to at least engage in it. We have to be willing at least to educate ourselves, at least to educate our loved ones, at least to be aware of it, to know that in maybe many of the schools that we're supporting or that we're allowing to be in our towns or communities, this is what's going on. To know that many of our children and relatives and friends are on the front lines every day of their academic career. To know that we have a responsibility to at least know, but to also to stand up and to stand together and to be strong. Because remember, Shabbat also reminds us of a holiday we just observed, the holiday of Shavuot, Mount Sinai. And there's one thing we learned on Mount Sinai, is that when the Jewish nation is unified in search for truth, anything's possible. And so this shouldn't scare us, it should embolden us. This shouldn't make us fearful, it should make us proud. It should make us united. We can do anything. We're the Jewish people. We've got God on our back. We've got God on our front. And that's what Shabbat stands for. And so on behalf of me and mine to yours, I wish you a Shabbat of strength, of power, of resilience, of knowledge. I hope to see you next week in Jerusalem. But if not, I hope to see you right back here. And together we're stronger. May we see a day where there is no more hate. And may we shine our light on the world in strength and in peace. Have a good weekend. Happy Memorial Day. A good Shabbos. And Shabbat Shalom.
Patience are faithless. The Torah gave the whole world a facelift. If hatred is baseless, we take it, erase it, and exchange it for that master goal. We don't forget wherever we may go. There is only one place we know, and it's called Zil.